The arcade culture is one of acceptance. It is built on the idea that all people, no matter their flaws, can come, and as long as they have the skills, can earn the respect of their peers. People would travel across the country to go to other arcades to prove themselves and represent their home arcade. These tournaments eventually came to represent arcade scenes all over the world. Pride for one's arcade was the driving force for success. With the decline of the arcade scene due to the proliferation of home console gaming, the arcade scene has all but dwindled to a standstill. The tournaments of old still survive, but instead of arcades, the motivation inevitably shifted towards people's regional affiliations and for personal pride. Instead of traveling around the world to visit arcades, most tournaments now take place in major cities, with venues being rented out for weekends to be broadcasted and streamed live across the world. The Dust Bowl Tournament Series was created by Damas as a regional tournament to showcase the skills of upstate New York. Aside from the prize of the tournament, the top 3 placers also earned themselves a spot in a highly prestigious invitational-only tournament being held in New York City later in the month. This invitation is the main motivation for many of the players attending the tournament today. The talent of the area is very spread out due to upstate New York being so large in general. Ryan, also known as Lufus, comes from the greater Rochester area and brings with him a skill that has earned him a top finish at a previous regional. Dave, known as Polish Mafia in the community, has won 2 previous Dust Bowl tournaments and seeks to defend his title against a slew of competitors. One in particular, Josh99, shows incredible talent and is one of the youngest players in the scene at only 13 years old. 2 hopeful players, however, have a very special rivalry with each other that culminates in a race to 10 games to prove which is the better of the 2 of them once and for all.
My name is Kyle Flournoy, also known as the KID, also known as Goggles. You put them together. People, when I enter tournaments, I go as Kid Goggles.
Kid Goggles is a tournament player from Rochester, New York. Although he doesn't travel often, he has complete confidence in his abilities as a player, to a point that almost borders on arrogance.
I would say I project arrogance. If you were to see me at a tournament and you ask me how I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you I'm going to get first place and I'm going to body everybody in the building and I'm going to get multiple perfects on people. You know why? Because I am the best. I'm the best, and I'm about to body everybody.
His main rival is Damas, the aforementioned creator of the Dust Bowl Tournament Series. Damas is a well-known player who started out playing Tekken and achieved a level of success, including multiple top 8 finishes at major tournaments. Lately, his focus has shifted to organizing tournaments to help cultivate the local fighting game scene.
Damas is a very good friend of mine. He's a very important rival of mine because he talks a lot of junk and thinks he's better than me, but he is not.
The initial rivalry started out as a friendly competition due to the 2 meeting in a tournament prior. Due to Goggles' ego and his ability to overestimate his abilities and to underestimate his opponents, the situation took a turn for the worse and has led to this tournament to be the final say in their personal grudge match. The game that they will be competing in is Marvel vs. Capcom 3, a fighting game that pits Marvel superheroes and villains against famous characters from Capcom. A player selects a team of 3 characters and has the ability to switch between the 3 characters at will, or to call in one of the other 2 characters for support. The fight is over when all the characters on one side are defeated. The game is characterized by its over-the-top non-stop action and hype.
Oh, he in there. No. Hit confirmation. He going for a ride. Oof, oof, oof. Pick him up. Ice. Ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. That man. Ooh. Oh, and here comes Doom. Ooh, ooh. Foot dive. Ooh, ooh. Whoa. Oh. Oh. Her. Mighty electrifying. Marlon 5. Make some noise.
You don't mess up a chord like that.
Nah, but rapid what?
No, just when you rap it, you're missing a leeway. And then
Yes, I did do that, didn't I? I am the goddamn best.
5, come on 5.
I am the fucking best.
I'll give you 5. I got 5 on Goggles, 2 stuff for me.
I didn't know. Yeah. Yeah. Are you playing your match? Yeah.
Tony versus Goggles. Oh my god. What an amazing match. I remember when they called the match that the guy announcing it had yelled it out, and everyone who wasn't playing, they decided to just come over and watch. It was amazing. Tony was filming a project, and no one knew that he was gonna have to play against like one of the guys that he was basically filming, and every match was accompanied by yelling and screaming and cheers for whoever they wanted to win. Rochester was there in full force, and so was Syracuse. Every game came down to like last character, last match, and such an amazing fight. And I have no idea how Tony was able to get it to be that close, but they ended up going to the last game. And it looked like he was gonna win it all, but Goggles somehow, with his last character, was able to catch two of Tony's characters at the same time.
He's the best!
Killed one of them, and the other character was hanging on for life. His character had absolutely no life left. If he had had 1 pixel of life less, he would have died. No! And it had put Tony in a bad situation, but somehow Tony lived through the second encounter and ended up winning the match. Everyone that was there exploded. Crowd just went wild. It was amazing. And Goggles, with this look of horror and disgust on his face, he slumps down in his chair because he can't believe what happens. And Tony's just standing there with his hand just raised in the air while everyone in Syracuse is looking on, just losing their minds. It was amazing. Damas had to play Josh in the tournament, and the results were not what anyone expected. Damas was a shoo-in, at least for top 3, and Josh, this 13-year-old kid, just comes out of nowhere and beats him 3 games to 0. Damas didn't even get a game on him. A lot of people were dumbfounded by the results of exactly how bad Damas was beaten by this little kid. He played the matchup perfectly. He did everything he was supposed to do. Props to him, but no one saw this coming. Dave versus Ryan Toner. There was a lot of tension in the air because this was finals. This was Dave defending his championship. It would have given him a three-peat. And this was Ryan Toner, who made it to finals for the second time.
Ladies and gentlemen, grand final.
One winner. We got grand final here. Full spot.
Dave had some incredibly close calls in the match because he wasn't used to the characters that Toner played.
He's used to the most.
Alright, Ryan's got these pretty nice combos. Does he know enough to make the kill? He does. Attack, a little risky. Nice.
And he catches them with the Trish combo. Does he get anything off of it? Alright,
He might need the DHC.
I don't know if he catch up with the combo, but that was unblockable. There's nothing to do about it. Oh, and he techs right into it.
Game 1 goes to Lucas.
I think one of the defining moments was when MODOK, being this character who's extremely mobile, and he's actually able to get up into this one place into the screen where no one else can get into, and then he's able to call out assists and things from the bottom, and you can't see them, and you have to react to them by sound. As he's doing this, he's not looking at the screen, he's looking at me and he's taunting me.
It looked completely hopeless for Dave because Toner was basically just toying and mocking with him. He was just mocking him the entire time because there was nothing he could do given the situation.
And I had a character, Dr. Doom, who's able to call these missiles out, and they're actually able to home in on him and pretty much mess with him back. And I was actually able to start calling out those missiles and look back at him and to see his reaction go from like, ha ha, what are you gonna do, to, oh crap.
Oh, and he catches the front end. He catches the
Finally got it.
Eventually, he'd have to come back down to the ground. And when he came back down to the ground, he guessed wrong once and was able to make probably the best comeback of his life.
He's gonna blend him.
Does he blend? He does. That is a
Set.
Centurion milkshake.
And I actually won that match, and I feel like it had set the pace.
Something like that really weighs heavily on you. And I think going into the final match, Toner was a bit shaken up because of that. He wasn't playing on his game that he usually does. The same thing can be said for Dave, because Dave was able to use that momentum that he gained from beating Toner to allow himself to play at full tilt.
But on this match here, we got Dave, and Dave is taking care of the problem, and he's about to take care of the second.
I kind of started cruising. The last match, I had killed his whole team with the exception of one character. It was Nova. And I had actually touched Nova, and I had X Factor, and normally in any grand final circumstances, that should have meant death.
Dave does a combo that he does every single day, and Dave drops it.
Gets caught.
What happened was that I dropped my combo, and he had grabbed me.
Ryan then proceeds to do his combo, and unfortunately he didn't drop his.
And came back to almost kill my whole team.
But it wasn't enough to kill, and so now they're both neck and neck across the screen.
It got down to the point where we had fought back and forth with projectiles with our last characters, and we had both gone down to 1 pixel.
It was the most nail-biting finals that you could have asked for, because one hit from either one of them would have resulted in death. The sheer amount of pressure in the room, you could feel it. It was so thick.
I have, with Magneto, one of the fastest projectiles or fastest moves that carry across the whole screen in the game. And he has one of the most invincible supers in the game that allows him to travel across the screen and do damage. And it has a startup frame of 1. So on the first frame, he becomes invincible out of 60 frames in the game. I had managed to slip in my projectile, which was I think 7 or 8 frames, and touch him before he was able to get off his 1 frame super.
In literally the span of 1/60th of a second, Dave was able to clutch out the match. If he had done it any slower, he would have lost.
intense moment, and it was pretty cool. I won $400 when it's all said and done, and my rent's paid. Got gas in my car. Was able to go take my girlfriend out next night, and I mean, I'm still able to with the job that I have, but it's awesome to have a hobby that can be an extra source of income.
This was the main event. This is what everyone had came here to see. Damas versus Goggles. They had hyped this match up for about 2 months. It was a money match between them, first to 10 for $100. They just went back and forth at each other's throats on Facebook and Twitter and all these other random places that people could see, and it got everyone so interested because they just needed to know. It was like, who was gonna take this? Everyone was patiently waiting. There was so much pride on the line.
Bill, you're dead.
Yo, Pablo's playing KOF.
Matt, why are you saying these things? All right, here we go.
The first match starts, and Damas wins. He beat him pretty convincingly. No one really thought much of it. The second and the third match start, and again, the same thing happens, and he beats him pretty convincingly. By the time the fourth match starts, Goggles has switched his team to something that he's never used before. A rare move, not something one really does in pressure situations. When the score was 5-0, there was a lot less cheering. There was a very foreboding atmosphere about the entire situation. People had predicted that Damas would win 10-5, 10-6. People had said jokingly that Damas might win 10-2, 10-1. It started to look like that was a distinct possibility, but no one in the room wanted to say it. After losing some games with his secondary team, he switched back to his main team. When it got to the end of the 7th match, when Goggles literally yells out, scream of agony.
No! Oh my God! He can't do anything right.
You begin to understand why he switched his team. He was searching for answers, and the conclusion dawns upon everyone in the room at once under this awkward silence that was prefaced by Goggles' scream of just sheer terror. They weren't watching a fight anymore. They were watching a massacre. Goggles, in the 8th round, ended up pausing the game mid-combo, just out of sheer frustration.
Oh yeah, that's not Steve.
When you pause a game in a money match or in a tournament match, you actually forfeit that game, and so it's effectively just a round loss. Now, not only was Damas beating Goggles, but Goggles was helping Damas beat him. Goggles had given him an extra game for no reason whatsoever. The 9th game came along, and we're all wondering now, after the 9th game, what the score will be. In a match that was hyped up for 2 months, if the possibility of this going 10-0 happens, what it means, and the ramifications of this for both of these players. There was nothing that Damas could have done better. There was nothing that Goggles could have done at all, because Damas literally played that match to perfection. And it showed, because he won 10-0.
10-0.
Never in the history of any money match can I remember has the score been that ridiculously one-sided.
It was 10-0 in Damas's favor. It was bad. I mean, the equivalent to it. You can't. You have 10 tries to get one win. You know, it's like, yeah, you can have a maximum amount of 19 games, you know, and to not be able to win one in that, I don't know, it's bad. It's very bad.
The matchup wasn't in his favor. His characters really had no way of dealing with Damas's team. If you really think about it, had no real answer. So it kind of begs the question, for 2 months, all of this talking, was he trying to convince everyone about his skills, or was he trying to convince himself?